The customer wants to be treated differently than ever before. When I say treated, they want to engage differently than they ever have before. And we're living in a digital age where people want to know exactly how to communicate with people differently. And the challenge we have today is that we have old school, a couple of years ago, today, and where we're going. And COVID, unfortunately, not only did it cost a lot of human lives, awful, we lost people that we know, it supercharged the way the consumer behavior changed so fast that we weren't prepared for it. The most important thing that has to come out of your session while you're here this week, in my opinion, separate from all the stuff we just talked about, is the way consumers want to communicate and the way they want to transact. We know they want transparency. As a consumer, you want transparency. We know we want all the information. We know that. How can you provide that? You can educate people. I ended up doing more business with people that charged me more, but educated me more. And they just said, this is what it is, this is the margin I need to make, this is how you can mark it up, and this is the way the process works. And you're going to pay me a little bit more than everybody else, but I'm going to give you additional services and resources that you can't get other places. And they were upfront with me. And that's when the profitability started to turn. And the gentleman said to me, I don't want to be in the how much, how cheap, how fast can we be. I want to be in how do we grow, how do we build, how do we connect with consumers. What I said to him is, I thank you for all of that. One thing that I left on 47th Street was my knowledge of how consumers want to move. And 47th Street, if you're on 47th Street, raise your hand. It's a very special place. But it's a little behind the times. If I walk in today to any jewelry store in America, do you capture my information in a way that a consumer wants to have their information captured? No. Do you have a CRM in place that allows you to understand every single move that the customer makes? Not just their birthday and their anniversary. That was 1985. Everything about them, how they move. Do you have predictive models that will tell you the customer trends and how they're behaving and what they're looking for? Probably not. And my best advice to everybody on 47th Street that I interacted with is, you better put away your pad and your pen, and you better digitize every single thing that you do. And you can subscribe to things that most people would be fascinated about. Understanding the customers in your basic trade area, 5 miles around your place, and where they go and what they shop. And you can start to de-anonymize their information and know who they are. And if you have a website, you don't need them to talk to you to know who they are. Some people don't like it. They say it's Big Brother. It feels too invasive. Don't do it. And what will be invading you are your moving boxes. I want to make sure, as a member of this industry, that I can contribute different things in exchange for education. And I'm not just saying me particularly. New people. The consumer is changing fast. They're demanding more. They want more transparency. They want more information. They want to know your story. They want to have a relationship with you. They want to be educated. They want to know you're going to be there at 7 o'clock at night on Sunday. They want to know that you're going to give them something different. And if you don't, somebody else will. This organization is built for one reason only, in my opinion. It's not just built to get together and have a drink and share a meal and listen to people like me. It's built to come here to get smarter. It's built to get here to leave with 2 or 3 initiatives that are going to change your business. This is not a social gathering. This is what's called data mining. How much data can you absorb in the time that you're here, and how can you put that data into motion? And every single day that we wake up, the customer's becoming smarter than we are. Because with technology, they can source information. And there are going to be people that are not in this room today that are going to take the commoditized product that we like to convince ourselves isn't a commodity, and they're going to make it such. The internet's a beautiful place until you're trying to hold margin. The internet's a beautiful place until you're trying to build a relationship. And the customer has been trained to gravitate towards the lowest cost, not the highest value. This whole story that I told you for the last however long starts with transparency, starts with vulnerability, then it quickly accelerates to science and data. And the absence of either of those, in my opinion, means that you will become a dinosaur. That gentleman over there said that his wife didn't want to change. She wasn't changing fast enough. She didn't listen. And he was joking, but probably not really. Probably not really. The challenge that I think all of us have is that the e-commerce world, unless you want to play at the bottom of high volume, low margin, high volume, low margin, high sales, lots of returns, high sales, lots of scams. Unless we can figure out how to crack the code and keep our industry very much a personal relationship, built on trust, built on honesty, built on transparency, built on relationships, built on you opening your kimono so that people know who you really are, is going to be important. The one thing that I also learned on 47th Street is the stacks. And many of you have tried to vertically integrate from top to bottom because you see other people making margin and you worry that there's some margin that you're leaving on the table. Raise your hand if you are one of those people and publicly admit it. If nobody raises their hand, you're liars. You raising your hand? Raising your hand, yeah. In this industry, I would ask you to respect the stacks. Respect it. And some of you are probably saying to yourself, this guy doesn't understand our industry. And I would say, I understand a lot of other industries a lot better than I do this one, and the stack problem exists. A restaurant thinks they can make more money by starting a farm. And then it thinks it can make more money by getting into the seed business. And then their tractor costs too much and they buy a tractor company. And we laugh, and that's an exaggerated example, but everybody has to do what they do best. And the stack will remain in place. And if you break that stack, and I'm not even saying that you can't negotiate harder, try to compress your margins to improve them. I'm not advocating that. But the stack has existed for years. There's all these new technologies and all these new ways to find diamonds and create diamonds and sell diamonds. But at the end of the day, if you took a poll, which I did, most people buy a diamond for the experience of doing it. Not the simple transaction. The joy of getting it, and the joy of going and looking at it, and the joy of picking it up and calling your mom or dad and saying, I'm going to look for something, will you come with me? That tradition needs to revive itself. That special process needs to revive itself. And I'm not saying that if you sell on the internet, it's not okay. It is okay. But I'd like to put the magic back in what we do. Not make it just about the money. Not make it just about how much you can crush somebody else. That stack starts with where it comes from, goes from rough all the way to finished, and all the steps in between. It's a beautiful process. I did not know that before I went through it. I did not appreciate it before I was educated. If there's anything that this organization can do, is to create an education around it. And if there's anything that people like you can do, is to create an education around it. I want to finish with one more thing. I don't know what the room is like in terms of what your beliefs are. And I never want to presume anything. We went through a crazy 2 years, very crazy. And whether you were for it or against it or this or that or whatever your position is, I don't care. I respect you for who you are and what you believe. Period. Story's over. What we're seeing now in the world post-COVID feels even scarier. And all I keep seeing is inflation and inflation and inflation. And to be honest with you, as a macroeconomist, I think part of the inflation is artificial. I think part of it is people being a little clever and using it as a crutch. My supply chain, my this, my vendor. And there's truth to it. I'm not refuting it. Your industry, like my primary business, which is the RV business, is discretionary. But the reason I love my primary business so much is because I'm not selling an asset, I'm selling an experience. And you guys are not just selling an asset, you're selling an experience. Doesn't matter how big or how small the diamond is or whatever it is that you sell, but that does matter what experience you take that consumer through. I'd like by people standing, and I'm standing, by the way, so that's your clue. I'd like you to stand if there's somebody that works with you that you wish did not. Hold on. Hold on. Don't sit. Please don't sit. Hold on. Stay standing. So everybody that's sitting loves everybody they work with? I just want to clarify that. You, sir? You guys with your arms crossed, looking like you're mad?
I had you up in my office.
You love everybody? Remember that I'm standing. And the message that I give myself every morning when I look in the mirror and I ask myself this question is, shame on you. That's what I say to myself. I'm not saying that to you. Shame on you. When you were given the opportunity to own a business, it's a gift and a privilege, not a right. This is me talking to myself. It's a gift and a privilege, not a right. And there's not a lot of people that get an opportunity to have their own business and make their own way and start their own path. Those are employees. And for whatever reason, they choose to follow you. And when they walked into your business on that one day and you interviewed them and you thought they were qualified and you hired them, you made a commitment to them to be their leader. And for those of you that are parents, you can understand it when I say to you that you would never stand if you said, would you get rid of one of your kids? The answer, of course, is no, I think. See, I don't have kids. I'm not blessed with that. I can't appreciate it. But I do have 15,000 people that I think of like kids. And they come in all shapes and sizes. And they have all their deficiencies and all their warts and all their insecurities and all the things that go along with them. But I love them to death. And that doesn't mean that everybody's going to work out that you hire. But what I'd ask you to do when you go to bed tonight is pick one person, just one, that you're thinking about when you stood. And go back to that individual and tell them that you went to this crazy thing and somebody tricked you into standing, and that you thought about them. I'm serious. And that you were embarrassed that you thought about them. because you recognize your role as their leader and their shepherd. And you recognize that there's a die or ride time. And that you ultimately are going to accept 100% of the responsibility for why it hasn't worked to this day. And you're going to ask them if they want to move forward. And you're going to do your best to try to repair that relationship. And if you can't, then it's time to let that bird go. Employees are very hard to find. Coworkers are very hard to find. Partners are very hard to find. Very hard to find. But there probably is no greater joy of taking a dysfunctional relationship or a person that's struggling, because we don't know why they're struggling at home. We really don't know. Your mom could be dying, their kid could be sick, they could have an addiction of some kind, they could have depression, anxiety, they could be attempting suicide, they could have secrets, they could be putting on a facade. We don't know. But when you were given the privilege to own a business or be somebody's leader, it came with responsibility. That responsibility to turn their life around, to give them something different, so that God forbid when you die, you know that they'll be able to stand up at your funeral and tell everybody in the room how you changed your life. At your funeral, nobody's going to talk about your sales data. Nobody's going to know I had an $85 million business. Nobody cares. You're dead, except whoever's getting the money. Nobody's going to care all the things you did for people that you don't know anymore. But if you can lay your head to rest in that final moment and know that one person, at a minimum, is able to say, I came to work for Susie. Boy, she was tough, and we got off to a rocky start. But one day she made a commitment to our relationship, and she changed my life. I then found a spouse, and I had kids, and I was able to live the American dream, and I put my kids through school, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without Susie. And I was able to educate my son or daughter to take over my business, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without Susie. And when my wife died from cancer, they gave me time off, and they cared for me, and I wouldn't have been able to get through that without Susie. Because we come to these things thinking it's just about business. I'm here to tell you, it's not about business. It's about the people that follow you every single day and give you the blessings of being on your team. This is not a church sermon. This is actually how real business functions. And if you look at a business that's been around for 30, 40, 50 years, or you look at a marriage that's been around for 62 years, 50-something years, their days aren't all good, but it's that commitment to each other that makes it work. That is all I ask of you in addition to the other things. Make this world a better place, please. Please. It's hard enough for employees, it's hard enough for vendors, and it's for darn sure hard enough for you. Is that fair? Okay, thank you.